Good evening and welcome. It's very nice to see all of you here. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Fuana Talk, these talks are held once a month, usually on the last Friday of every month. And it's a place where we usually have a speaker who will discuss, who will talk about a topic that's spiritual in nature. So it's a place to come and to learn and also to discuss and learn different viewpoints. So begins with dinner, and then there's a talk, which is around 20 minutes usually. And then after that, the floor is open for discussions and consultations over tea and dessert. So tonight is going to be, the topic for tonight is rediscovering our true human identity. Throughout the ages of pre-modernism, modernism, and postmodernism, human beings have been dehumanized, the cause and result being the lack of knowledge or understanding and the distortion of true human reality, respectively. So as humanity learns to advance towards its stage of maturity, we need to understand our true identity. Joshua is our speaker, and as a Baha'i, Joshua endeavors to align his thoughts and actions with the spiritual and moral teachings enshrined in the revelation of Bahá'u'lláh. It is these same teachings that fan his desire to contribute to the betterment of the local community and ultimately the world. In a variety of settings, he is learning about how to bring to bear in ever greater measure the society-building power of the Baha'i faith. So I think it's a fascinating topic tonight, and one that people have been talking about for centuries. So who are we really? There's going to be an opening prayer, and after that, we'll get to hear Joshua. Thank you.
All praise, O my God, be to thee, who art the source of all glory and majesty, of greatness and honor, of sovereignty and dominion, of loftiness and grace, of awe and power. Whomsoever thou willest, thou causest to draw nigh unto the most great ocean, and on whomsoever thou desirest, thou conferrest the honor of recognizing thy most ancient name. Of all who are in heaven and on earth, none can withstand the operation of thy sovereign will. From all eternity thou didst rule the entire creation, and thou wilt continue forevermore to exercise thy dominion over all created things. There is none other God but thee, the Almighty, the most exalted, the all-powerful, the all-wise. Illumine, O Lord, the faces of thy servants, that they may behold thee, and cleanse their hearts, that they may turn unto the court of thy heavenly favors, and recognize him who is a manifestation of thyself, and the dayspring of thine essence. Verily, thou art the Lord of all worlds. There is no God but thee, the unconstrained, the all-subduing. Bahá'u'lláh.
Okay, good evening, everybody. First of all, just to thank everyone, the team that's organizing this spaces for the opportunity to share some thoughts on the topic of our true identity. As I was preparing, I realized that the topic that I had shared perhaps was too broad and would have required quite an extensive discussion. But even I've synthesized it, it still requires quite a lot of discussion over time. So we may not, I don't think in any event we will be able to exhaust the topic. But hopefully it's a beginning of a conversation that we can carry on. And maybe I should just state from the onset that really what I'm about to share are my personal thoughts based on my own understanding of the writings of Bahá'u'lláh, of Abdul Baha, and the guidance of the House of Justice. So really, it's important, and I'll touch on this aspect of our own investigation of truth, our own investigation of the teachings of the Baha'i faith. I should also just acknowledge that some of the ideas are also based on the ideas that are presented by Professor Nader Saidi, who, of course, has his own ideas for his own understanding of the teachings of God. So, this question of the rediscovering our true identity you see, one of the teachings of Bahá'u'lláh, one of the teachings of the Bahá'í faith is the idea that there is only one God. And I think, broadly speaking, there is no argument to be had against this principle, that there is only one God. Notwithstanding the different religions in the world, that on its own is another topic, the concept of progressive revolution. But I'm not going to dwell on it. But I think what you would all agree that there's only one God. We also know from all religions that they teach us that we as humanity were created in the image and likeness of God. Again, there's no argument there. That's a truth that all religions recognize. Now, in light of these two truths, one, that there is only one God, two, that we are created in the image and likeness of God, it then follows that as humanity, we are one with God. We are one with God because God Himself is one, and therefore, because we are also created in His image, we are one with God, and therefore, ultimately, as humanity, we are one. Yet, this is another principle of the Baha'i faith, the oneness of mankind. And yet, throughout history, we have hopelessly failed to understand this very basic yet profound truth that humanity is one, irrespective of the difference in color, irrespective of the difference of our nationality, irrespective of language, irrespective of tribe. At the end of the day, ultimately we are one. And this flows from the understanding that we are all created in the image of God. And yet we have treated each other as if we were different people over the centuries. And it is this lack of understanding of this truth that, in my view, has led to the distortion of what our true reality is as human beings. And really, the cause of human suffering over time has been primarily because of this lack of understanding of our true identity, of the oneness of mankind, of the oneness of God, of the idea that we are all created in the image of God. During World War I, the executive committee in The Hague, they wrote on a number of occasions to Abdul Baha. Now, Abdul Baha is the son of Bahá'u'lláh, whom he appointed as his successor to lead the Baha'i faith following the passing of Bahá'u'lláh, who was the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. So this committee, which was established to promote peace and justice in the world. So during the World War, and then it was based in The Hague, in the Netherlands, essentially. So they write to Abdul Baha, and Abdul Baha replies in 1919. And this is what he says. He says, and among the teachings of Baha, now, in that reply, Abdul Baha outlines the teachings of Baha really very extensively. So if you really, at least my view is, if you really want to just understand broadly what the teachings of Bahá'u'lláh, what the principles of Bahá'u'lláh is, referred to that reply of Abdullah, tablet to the Hague, particularly the first one, because he wrote 2 replies to the Hague. But the one I'm quoting from is the first reply or the first tablet to the Hague that he responds. And in that tablet, he outlines paragraph by paragraph what the teachings of Bahá'u'lláh and really the principles. It's not an extensive read. It's about, I think, 4 pages, if I'm not mistaken. You read that, you have a broad understanding of the essential teachings of Bahá'u'lláh, of the Bahá'í. But from that reply, this is one of the things that he says to this committee that seeks to promote peace and justice in the world. He says, among the teachings of Bahá'u'lláh is man's freedom, that through the ideal power, he should be free and emancipated from the captivity of the world of nature. For as long as man is captive to nature, he is a voracious animal, as the struggle for existence is one of the exigencies of the world of nature. This matter of the struggle for existence is a fountainhead of all calamities and is a supreme affliction. Now, because of our distortion and lack of understanding of what our true identity is, I argue that this has led to the dehumanization of humanity. In other words, we've been reduced as human beings to the kingdom of the animal. We've been reduced to nature. And because of that, we've created a society which is characterized by a struggle for existence. At the heart of human suffering, at the heart of human crisis, is the crisis of identity. Who are we as human beings? Our true identity. Now, depending on how we see ourselves, how we see our role in the world, that has impact in terms of how I relate with others. So if I see myself as different from others, I will treat others as different. If I see others as the same as me, irrespective of whatever characteristics, then that relationship looks completely different. But because historically we've seen each other as different, we have caused human suffering, we've treated others differently. The question of racial prejudice, the question of religious prejudice. So all these kind of forces that we have experienced over time emanates from the distortion of our true identity. Now, among all of these things is, for example, slavery. It's because we've seen other people as different from us, and hence slavery. The question of tribalism is because we're seeing others as different from us, and hence tribalism, conflict. World war is because we see others as different from us. All of these prejudices is because of how we've distorted our true reality. Now, these forces, I just want to focus on 2 of them. The one is nationalism. That also is a negative force that leads to conflict, that leads to lack of progress, as it relates to peace or even divine civilization for that matter. We have, in the last decades, witnessed a phenomenon that we call globalization. And in one sense, we're like, yes, we are moving towards this ideal of the oneness of mankind, that ultimately, as Baha'u'lláh says, the earth is but one country and mankind its citizen. So globalization is only but one step towards the realization of the teaching of Baha'u'lláh, of the principle of Baha'u'lláh, that the world is but one, and mankind is its citizen. But whilst we have kind of made that step, we have, in a sense of recent, also taken a step back in terms of taking forward this concept of globalization and advancing it further towards ultimate realization that we want as well. And I don't need to go far. I can go even as yesterday in terms of the steps that we've taken backwards towards this advancement of globalization, which essentially is this question of nationalism. You see, the difficulties now, I have to give examples of this. But it's not a difficult thing. You know, if you look at, this is just an example. You look at the relationship between the US and China in the last 10, 15 years. Right? Part of the globalization was that there was this kind of interaction, exchange. And if I don't have whatever I did to advance my community, my country, I would get this from another country that has these other things that I need. And so it was a reciprocal process where whatever, if I need something in South Africa, I know I can rely on other countries, on other nations. But not anymore. Today. I mean, you look at the last few weeks, some of the things that the US has said, not South Africa, forget it. That's nationalism. At the heart of it is nationalism. It's about protecting and looking inward and just looking at the interests of my country. And everyone else, you can suffer. You look at during COVID, all right? Certain countries had the means to alleviate the suffering that COVID brought about. But at the initial stages, they were looking inward and no interest about everyone else. That's nationalism. And the consequence is that the rest suffers. And the consequence is that we've essentially regressed towards, as we thought that we were making progress with this concept of globalization. And Baha'u'lláh, this is what Baha'u'lláh says. He says, it is not for him to pride himself who loveth his own country, but rather for him who loveth the whole world. The earth is but one country and one kind, its citizen. So that's one force of nationalism that is distorting our true identity. Because we see others as different, we therefore relate to them differently. And that difference is, as I said, from a nationalistic perspective or from prejudice or race perspective and so on and so forth. The other one is this, and one of the other forces is religious traditionalism. Now, in the beginning I said, the ideas I'm sharing are my own understanding of the Bahá'í teachings. And it's quite important, you know, that we, and this is one of the teachings of Baha'u'lláh, that we all investigate the truth for ourselves. So, in other words, simply put, don't take what I say as the truth. All I'm doing is just sharing ideas, sharing what I understand. And at the end of it, we'll discuss and you share your own thoughts, and that helps me also advance in my own understanding. But ultimately, we all have this responsibility to investigate the truth for ourselves. And because of religious traditionalism, we have failed to do this. And what do I mean by religious traditionalism? So I am born in X family, and this X family follows a particular religion. And because of that, of those two facts, that I am born in this X family, that X family follows a particular religion, and therefore as I grow up, I simply follow the same religion of my forefathers. That's traditionalism. Because essentially what it does is that it robs me of the freedom of my choice. It robs me of my responsibility to investigate truth for myself. It robs me of my own consciousness, essentially. That's what it does. So Bahá'u'lláh comes, he says one of the teachings that we have to apply is this question of investigation of truth for ourselves. So see through your own understanding, not see through your own eyes, not through the eyes of others. Know through your own knowledge, not through the knowledge of others or the understanding of others. Again, because I am robbed of my consciousness, of my, and I'll talk to this, my, one of the qualities that Bahá'u'lláh says distinguishes us as human beings from animals is the question of rationality, the question of the quality of reason. But if I just follow what my forefathers told me, of course there's a great learning, there's a great insight, absolutely. But that does not free me of this responsibility of investigating for myself, essentially exercising my power of reason. And this power of reason, this quality of reason, is ultimately what distinguishes us from animals. Otherwise, in terms of other qualities, there's similarity. But this power of rationality, a rational soul, is ultimately what distinguishes us from animals. Now, then I think with that, then the question is, okay, fine. We understand the forces that have distorted our reality and who we are as human beings. What is then our true reality as human beings? What is our true identity? And this is a question I believe that more and more people are asking themselves. What is my identity? But at the heart of it is essentially a spiritual quest. It's a soul seeking the spiritual truth about who they are, about many aspects of their lives, about many aspects of the life of a society. That's ultimately what it boils down to. Now, in the Bible, we read, it says, and this is according to the Bible, the words of Jesus Christ. Very truly, I tell you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless they are born again. But what does this born again mean? And I would argue that a true interpretation of this concept of being born again is essentially to discover who we are as human beings. Because we've lost our true identity. And we need to rediscover what this identity, what our true and essential identity is. And to me, this verse from the Bible, interpreted properly, it means rediscovering our true identity as human beings. And because of that, therefore, we need to expand our consciousness about what reality is and be cognizant of the forces in society that distorts our understanding of who we are. And this is how Bahá'u'lláh describes who we are. He says, that one indeed is a man who, by the way, man meaning humanity, essentially, not man in the gender. That one indeed is a man who today dedicated himself to the service of the entire human race. So it eliminates nationalism, it eliminates tribalism, it eliminates essentially who I am is dedicating myself to the service of humanity. And in doing that, essentially, I am worshiping God. Because how else do we worship God if not through service to others, if not through service to my neighbor, my family, my community, and ultimately service to the human race. And it is in that service that we discover who truly we are. Now, one of the prayers as humanity that we've had over centuries is we say in the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So in other words, as I understand it, what are we praying for? We are praying for this world, for this earth, to reflect the will of God. To essentially reflect what heaven is. That's what we are praying for. And Baha'u'lláh has brought teachings that will make this possible. Again, this goes back to who are we? And if we don't understand that, then that can never be a reflection of the will of God. We can never hope to have a well that reflects the qualities of God. The House of Justice says this, that whilst the forces of disintegration regroup and gain ground, they have no reason to be hopeless. And they assure us, they say, the unification of humanity is unstoppable by any human force. So in other words, Baha'u'lláh says, I've come here to unify mankind, and these are the principles: oneness of God, oneness of humanity, oneness of religion, so on and so forth. And the essence, as I understood it, of the Bible is about bringing world unity. And the Universal Laws of Justice assures us that, notwithstanding all these forces that we see in the world, that this aspiration is unstoppable by any human force. Because it is the will of God for today. For 1,000 years we've prayed for this to come about. And Baha'u'lláh has brought teachings that will help us to achieve that. So they say that the unification of humanity is unstoppable by any human force. The promise is made by the prophets of old and by the author of the cause of God himself testify to this truth. And then one of the other forces that robs us of our true identity, and hence this question of a spiritual perception, a question of consciousness about the forces that impact us. It's the question of, okay, I don't have a television, but when I was watching television, you look at, in fact, you don't need even a television. You just drive along the highway and then you see all kinds of advertisements and all of that. We have made human beings as objects. So I have X product that I need to sell, and I take this X product and somehow humanize it. So we've essentially become commodities for businesses. And that becomes the attraction. That's dehumanization. I mean, today and perhaps we are not conscious, and hence this question of raising our consciousness about reading reality and reading what forces in the world impacts the decisions that we make, affects the decisions that we make. I am attracted to, there's this insurance company called Naked. What is that? And there's so many examples of how we have objectified human beings. Again, a distortion of who we are. But maybe in closing, let me say this. Anyway, I mean, this topic we can go on and on. Individualism, the question of the insistence of, and so on and so on. But what Abdul Baha says, I found this quite, and I still don't understand it, but anyway, let me share it with you. You will also help me. He says, at the present, universal peace is a matter of great importance. But unity of conscience is needed, is essential. So in other words, as I understand it, for us to bring about peace, for us to bring about unity, we need to have a unity of conscience. Essentially, we need to agree what is wrong and what is right. If we don't agree on those fundamentals, how else can we have truth? So if we don't agree about who we are as human beings, how can we then have peace or unity in the world? And hence, this question of unity of conscience is essential, so that the foundation of this matter may become secure, its establishment firm, and its edifice strong. So in brief, our true identity is our soul, is our spiritual being, not our biological, physical existence. Our true identity is our spiritual aspects of our lives. Again, God is not a physical being. So if we are made in the image of God, the implication are clear, is that our true identity is one that is spiritual. All these other biological things are not who we are, essentially. But we have come to define ourselves only at the level of nature, only at the level of the physics, only at the level of biology. And a man and a woman, the soul has no gender. And because we see this gender and hence the force of patriarchy. Otherwise, if we saw no gender, if we saw no color, all of these forces will not be present. So those are my thoughts that I thought I should share, but I'm sure you have your own thoughts that would also contribute to my own advancement in terms of understanding this question of our true identity. So thank you very much.
Thank you.